Hi viewers, and thanks for tuning into this week's Earth predictions. Today is the 29th of May. Now there's going to be a short delay until I manage to upload this onto YouTube, but it will get there eventually. This reading will stand current until June the 8th or 10th roughly. Now last week's reading showed a large amount of accuracies within points that were brought up. I won't go over them here on today's video, but rather I'll put a link below so that you can look back and see that video, and I have also put scripts across the video in relevant places that match the outcomes that the cards seemed to lead their way into saying. So if we look for this week's reading, the first card for this week is the Fool. We've had him before. Now when we look at him, if you just see, we get a feeling of unpreparedness or unknowing, like a sudden journey. So someone who's not fully aware of the potential of something that could happen on that journey possibly. So it could be an event that won't be a particularly predicted outcome. It will be very sudden, an unexpected event. And in the past when this card has turned up, we have seen things falling from the sky, whether it be an increase in meteorites or plane accidents. I think the last time this card arrived we had the Korean missile that was launched. It went up for a minute and then came back down again. So those are the types of examples of things that this card can bring about. And also in the background there is this house sitting terribly close to the edge of a cliff there, and that to me leads to the possibility of the falling again, so maybe buildings falling over or toppling over. Again, in a really sudden, quick event, one that hasn't been a watched situation as such, so something that will happen in a sudden. The next card that came out was the Tower, and we've had the Tower before, and I've pretty well much seemed to stay strong with it. Depicts quite often larger than average earthquakes, somewhere above the 5 mark, going up the 6s maybe and beyond, and that's indicative of houses shaking. It seems fairly clear that that is what that card means, and interestingly enough, again we're look at the particular style of house it is. I hadn't noticed that before, but I'm saying, could it be in older parts of the world? You'll see why again in a minute with the next card. I have always also said with that card it can mean, should we move to higher ground? Could you be safer on higher ground? So the third card that came out was the Warrior. He was here last week. He doesn't seem to want to go away at the moment. He is a card of aggression or agitated energies, and that's what we feel when he comes into a reading. And we notice that he is of older look about him. He's empirical age or European feel, and we get that through the type of landscape around him, the hills. We also get it with the buildings, the age of the buildings. There's castles there, there's tents, as it the Arabian tents through the deserted areas, and his garb and clothes that he are wearing are very set period of very old parts of Europe and up through that top Middle Eastern block of the world. So with agitated energies going on, we can see it in two ways. It can manifest in physical on the planet, as in perhaps earthquakes or some sort of surge of, there's a flurry of something that moves through this card and out directed towards the tents, as if it's a sudden surge of, powerful energy, very quick, unexpected, quite volatile. And we can also see it in aggression of people as well, because he is a military person. So there's two ways that card can be read, as in a military agitation or earth agitation. The next card that came out was the Now card. You can't really get around this card. It is basically saying, yes, there is something happening right now. And if we look at it, we see the sun up in the corner. So I always, I've linked this one into solar activity. Whether or not we are headed in for a higher activity of solar flares, we know that in the next couple of days there is a rotation coming back to us on Earth with a large solar flare, or sunspot rather, which could create quite a lot of activity. No one knows of yet, of course. it can cause an increase in Earth-related activity when we get solar flares. That's when the protons bombard Earth with their powerful energy, and literally we can be rearranged through that, both physically and emotionally. And so can the Earth, of course, physically and emotionally, through the way of earthquakes. It can also be a sign of tropical storms. There are some people out there who believe also that these high energy fields that hit us can alter weather patterns as well as vibrations on the earth, creating possible shift in earthquakes. There's also a feeling coming that with people, it obviously, you can see the solar rays there, and they are coming right down onto this person. Of course they affect us as well, and they often create upsurging with humanity because we're on a bent of trying to, shift things from us, and often that is gaining freedom from shackles of belief systems or being entrapped by political movements that have enslaved our ability to have free thinking. So that's also a sign of that card. I also look down here, it is saying harvest time, which we come back to at the moment as being in the southern hemisphere. So maybe there is going to be some activity that this card is suggesting in the southern hemisphere, maybe earth related. The next card out was the wheel. This I look into as being a galactical sign. It's like the whole universe, and it's the cycle of life. So it's as if something is moving across everything. And when I think about it now, we have, of course, something very powerful that a lot of people will be looking at next week, and that is the transit of Venus across the sun. So this card, they've come out right next to each other, almost as part of a pattern. That's also part of the now card. We are going to see solar activity, and it will definitely be the transit of Venus. And the wheel card is also saying it's a cycle in the universe and the planets that is going to be happening in the period of this reading. So that's quite apt that the two cards have come together and they've shown up in this reading. That's definitely part of the message there. It's also possibly about it's a whole cycle, so it's more than just Venus and the Sun. There's a whole lot of things happening in the planet that are part of a greater galactical cycle that are coming onto Earth at the moment. And the last card that showed up was the Libido. Now the Libido card is very interesting if we take the meanings a little bit more than literal, as you see it there. Yes, there are animals on the card, so it could have an inference towards animals in the reading again. We've had so many animal deaths already this year. I think we're up to 1,500 or 2,000 dolphins, whales. We've had numerous bird deaths, a lot of them off the coast of Chile in Argentina. So the with this Libido card, I watched a movie the other night on YouTube, and it was called Symbols of an Alien Sky, and it was powerfully interesting. It starts off with the planets in the sky all aligned with a series of plasma energies emanating from them in the formation of all things, a wheel. This is something they believe that was shown to us through ways of ancient civilizations, through their drawings and etchings, all of which show certain similar shapes, and one of which is the wheel or the fanned tail feathers. And it appears to be a time when the planets were not in the position that we know of today. They were in a totally different position, they held different meanings, and the theology behind this, or the philosophy behind this movie that I was watching, was that the ancient gods were in fact the planets, and they behaved in a different manner, and that is how all the different archetypes of the planets and the names of the like Venus and Medusa and the Mars warrior, all of that all came into play. So when these two cards arrived together, it seems even more of a tie-up about planetary links and possible changes, enlightenment for humans in particular. We're growing, and we know that, stage to stage, with all sorts of events that are taking place, each leading us to a higher position of enlightenment and understanding. These cards are heavily steeped in ancient archetype messages, and I feel they do indicate spiritual awakening on a global or planetary nature, and large events on the planet can push that energy along. So I think this week the cards are showing a very active phase. They look as though they've got quite a strong message of earth movement, and yeah, and agitated energy. So we'll see how that goes, everyone. I hope you all have a safe week. Be happy and be kind to one another. Take care. Thanks for listening.